Can you explain the nature of the physical trade corridor between Europe and China?
The trade corridor between China and Europe is one of the largest trade corridors we have.
China, Europe, these are two world biggest economic power.
I'm Mahika Ravishankar, Assistant Editor at Trade Finance Global.
I'm Steven from TradeGo, and I'm a Director of Business Development.
I'm Patrik Zekkar, CEO of Enigio.
Welcome to Trade Finance Talks, your go-to trade, treasury and payments podcast. Brought to you by Trade Finance Global.
I'm Mahika Ravishankar, Assistant Editor at Trade Finance Global, and I've been really looking forward to this podcast. In October 2024, technology providers Enigio and TradeGo developed an interoperable digital corridor for electronic trade documents to facilitate trade between Europe and China. It's been called a digital Silk Road, a trade route for the 21st century, moving the documents which make the exchange of goods possible. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Patrik Zekkar of Enigio and Steven Zhou of TradeGo. We're going to unpick exactly what a digital trade corridor is and the practical advantages of this one. So we'll start off with some quick introductions. Who are you, where are you from, and what do you do? Steven, would you like to go ahead?
Okay, hi, I'm Steven. I'm the Director of Business Development of TradeGo. TradeGo is the Singapore-based trade tech company. We focus on the digitalisation of international trade.
Hi, I'm Patrik Zekkar, CEO of Enigio. Enigio provides an open digital trade networks. We can finally replace the paper documents.
Perfect. I think we'll start by going back to basics for our listeners. What exactly is a trade corridor? Can you explain the nature of the physical trade corridor between Europe and China?
The trade corridor between China and Europe is one of the largest trade corridor we have. It's approximately 5.3 trillion US, which are shipped in and out of China, therefore of key essence for the global economy. The trade comes with a lot of documentation from both the importer and exporter, and we were looking for a way to simplify the handling of the physical paper documents such to trade.
Thanks. Steven, do you have anything to add there?
China, Europe, these are two world biggest economic power, and there's a lot of trading between these two areas. We're glad to have a chance to digitalize the whole process.
Thanks. So, Patrik, you touched on documentation. Clearly, there's a great deal of it to facilitate the 5.3 trillion USD trade. How efficient do you think the current documentation process is?
The current documentation is completely analog. And if we look at the modernized supply chain, most of the supply chains is currently online. You can manage a freight container of fresh goods from a control room and decide exact temperatures throughout the journey. The only piece that's remain analog is the physical paper, which can hold up and delay shipments and offloadings, and therefore create a lack of resilience, flexibility if you have to change destination, and also delays in the event of the documents reach destination of the shipments later than the actual containers.
Thank you. And Steven, how about you? Where do you think the inefficiencies lie in the current documentation process?
Yes, the traditional process is all based on the paper. So all the parties have to print it, sign it, stamp, and send it by couriers. And this has been in decades, and especially in the COVID, it caused a lot of problem, especially when the courier stop or the city shut down and people want to pick up the cargo, rely on this document. They have to pay extra money for the demurrage. That caused a lot of problem. I think it's time to move forward.
Patrik mentioned efficiency in terms of how the digital trade corridor simplifies trade between China and Europe compared to traditional processes. Steven, how does moving digital simplify the whole nature of trade documentation?
Efficiency is definitely one of the key we can improve. And in the collaboration with Enigio, we developed an digital channel for different type of the trade documents, such as bill of lading, warehouse receipt, invoice, and etc. And all these transactions previously, they took 1 or 2 weeks to be completed. Now it's just in 1 business day or 2. So this will benefit all the parties, especially when they need the document urgently in some particular scenario. So it significantly reduced the time required for trade finance processes.
If you urgently need a document, you just won't be able to get it with current analog processes. It's only by moving digital that you can get things with immediacy. Patrik, do you have anything to add on this point?
Yeah, let me take an example from the real life. We had a German export importer shipping to China a week ago, testing this interoperability channel between Enigio and TradeGo, involving banks on the both side. This will become publicly known within short, I hope, so we can share the experience. The transaction usually takes between 35 and 45 days, while we conducted the end-to-end transaction of the documentation required for that shipment on less than 1 hour, 50 minutes. That's a amazing efficiency reduction, only number of days and working capital. And you can calculate on that in various aspects.
Thank you very much. It's great to hear these tangible examples of how the trade corridor has actually been used. Are there any other examples you guys would like to share, maybe in the pilot stage of corridors opening?
Yeah, sure. And from one personal perspective, I think the best scenario for digital to do it now is the company who have their goods in bonded warehouse in China already. See, the China is imported a lot of commodities from Europe or other place, and because the distance quite far, and some companies they do store their goods in bonded warehouse. The cargo is in China already, but the documents is be prepared in Europe. So the routine will be to prepare all the documents in Europe and submit and present these documents to the banks in Europe. And the banks, after they check in the documents, and they have to send it over by courier to China, the Chinese, probably the LC issuing bank, then transfer to the buyer. That will take extra hours. If we can do this in digital, so they're going to benefit everybody because the cargo is right there. We only need the document to make the payment and release the cargo.
And Patrik, would you like to touch on that? Perhaps if there are more examples you can share, any stories of this corridor in use?
I think it's multiple examples which we showcase. The corridor is now in production. The corridor works. It's delivered the business benefits values which we set out, shortening time, reducing cost, increased resilience, and of course security. No one can tamper with electronic trade document. I think also the scaling up perspective here, which has been very important in the collaboration with TradeGo, is the leading electronic trade document provider in China. Enigio is the leading electronic trade providers in Europe. By collaborating, we service both the market in the best possible way, rather than having to onboard two different systems and sub-optimizing costs and IT resources and also processes.
Hey, enjoying the episode? Tap follow for more. Done? Let's get back to it.
Stephen, how about you? What major benefits does a digital trade corridor offer businesses looking to trade, businesses in China looking to trade with Europe?
I absolutely agree with Patrik. Previously, each platform was like a separate ecosystem, and all users need to log into one platform to use it. Get all stakeholders to log into one same platform is kind of like a mission impossible. So we believe in the future, when digital go become like more popular, such like EBL gonna reach 100% adoption in 2030, and it has to be just like wearing the money or sending emails. Users can freely choose their preferred platform, and platform connect with each other to support the business. In this case, the Chinese users, they want to do digital. They don't have to ask their counterparty to onboard TradeGo. They can tell their counterparty just onboard Enigio. On the other ways, if the European seller or buyer, they want to go digital, they don't have to onboard TradeGo or ask their counterparty to onboard Enigio. So we just let the users choose freely to pick up the platform what they like. So they will remove some barriers for the digital adoption.
Interesting. And I like that idea of it's not pitting each other against each other. It's more about working together and choosing the optimal platform based on your needs. But I'm sure that a lot of companies that you must have spoken to or approached working with don't share the same vision and optimism about the future of digital trade documents. So for companies new to digital trade, what's the biggest misconception that you guys have heard about switching from paper-based processes? And what would you say to them to counter this misconception? Stephen, would you like to go ahead?
The biggest challenge for adoption is we're talking about changing habits, actually. So 100 years, we have our trade is based on the paper. If some personal habits want to change, say you want to go to bed 1 hour early or wake up 1 hour early in the morning, we have to put some efforts, it takes time. But this habit is already last 100 years. It's not only one person, it's a million person, and it's multiple industry involved. So it takes time. Everything you have to take a first step. So I think everybody who want to try it, the first try, you're going to get a first benefit. That's for sure. If you are interested, if you're in Europe, just reach out to Enigio. If you're in China, just reach out to TradeGo. Either of us will help you to go through this.
So taking that first plunge is just the most important step. How about you, Patrik? Anything to add?
No, I agree with Steven. It's about change. All change, it takes some time for people to adjust. What we have done is lower the barrier for change to a set minimum. And additionally, the benefits to a maximum, I would say, given the example, only in one shipment of that you're not talking about reducing hours, you're talking about reducing multiple days. That change need also to be minimized in terms of not affecting current processes and procedures. So I think electronic trade document, as you know, is based on that it need to be paper equivalent. The process very much can be replicated as they do today, but everything goes faster, easier, and is of course more secure. So I think all the parts which require for efficient change management, to do this transformation, it's not about a leap, it's a transformation for the users, is there, and as well as the benefit.
Thank you, Patrik. So resistance is more just resistance to change. I like this approach from Enigio and TradeGo to just keep the change to the minimum, the benefits to the maximum, as you said. And just to wrap up this interview, I want to look ahead, look to the future. How do you see this trade corridor evolving? What new opportunities could it unlock for businesses? And what challenges do you foresee? Steven, I know we've discussed before the impact which tariffs are having on how this corridor is used. Do you want to maybe elaborate on that?
I think the reason that everybody knows is the tariff. That's the hard word. And I think and everybody else realize our world is changing. At least the trade world is changing. As also currently rules gonna go, and we have new rules. And I think digital is something is new. And I mentioned already, our trade world based on paper is already last 100 years. In this old system, if you want to stick something new in, that will take time. Now we might have an opportunity to have a new trade system. This new trade system definitely gonna be a room for digital. So I believe we're gonna have a new trade agreement made, and this will be conclude a lot of regarding to digital trade. There will be regarding to the standards, regarding to the e-payment, regarding to the electronic documents, like the red legislation, things also like the ID stuff. So there'll be a lot of stuff we can do, and we can work together. We have to work together because no one can do this by their own. There won't be any like a superpower to make a rules. So there'll be like a multilateral agreement on this.
Thanks, Steven. It's so interesting because whenever people talk about what the impact of tariffs are, yes, they discuss this massive upheaval with the world order of trade as we know it. But I like this optimistic note that with a new trade system, there's going to be room for new innovation, and that will likely take the form of digital. So in terms of digital trade documentation, it's not actually all pessimistic as sometimes it feels like in this industry. Patrik, how about you? What do you see the future of this digital trade corridor looking like?
In the light of what's going on now with tariffs and geopolitical disturbances on trade, I don't think it's about giving room to innovation. It's about the requirement to modernize trade. There's a couple of things which will come out of this, most likely, and learning from earlier crises, as COVID was mentioned, so yes, channel, etc. There need to be more resilience and more resilience in the trade system, because that's a systematic risk if we continue to rely on with the last piece of non-connected part of the supply chain, which is the analog paper. That's also a higher demand now for flexibility in managing your trade, and the paper document process need to cater for that also, like the containers and the carriers has to cater for more flexibility in how they operate different trade lanes. There is not room for going analog with paper. Apart from that, cost will go up. We don't know what the tariff will end. One thing to be sure, it will be more expensive, and cost can no more be pushed around in the supply chain. Cost need to be taken out, and that's also a key key reason for efficiency and cost reduction. And thirdly, of course, we will see changes in trade corridors, the output which cannot be shipped to US or other markets due to that it's not competitive anymore need to be redirected to other markets, and new markets means new risk, new uncertainties, and that means trade and trade finance need more support, because trade will not stop. Trade always finds its way, but it needs to be supported with flexibility, agility, and also resilience.
So with this rerouting away from the US that you've mentioned, does the Europe-China digital corridor, do you suppose it's going to see any increased interest? And have you seen any increased interest in it so far?
The reason why we started with the European China corridor was after asking around among our customers, which are the key trade lanes. And China, of course, came up as number one. So it's already a high interest, and I expect it to grow, given that the tie between Europe and China trade will most probably increase.
Thank you so much for that. Both of you, Steven, Patrik, this has been a really fascinating call, and I'm so glad we got to bring this digital trade corridor to life. As you both say, we're going to see increased discussions on European and Chinese trade in the coming months as a result of all of the geopolitics going on in the world. I'm glad we got to iron out the nature of this digital trade document corridor. So thank you both very much for your time.
Thank you.